A used Yamaha F20 from 2018 lists for around $3,800. A brand new Tohatsu MFS20 retails for just under $3,500. Both are Japanese. Both are 4-stroke. One of them has a known carburetor icing problem in cold weather that the manual barely mentions. The other has a lower unit design that makes gear oil changes nearly impossible without the right proprietary tool. Your dealer knows both of these things. They are not going to tell you either one. So, I bought 4 of the most popular, used and entry-level Japanese outboards under $4,000, put them on the bench, and pulled them apart. What is inside tells you things the sales floor never will. Before we rank them, you need to understand something. Japanese outboards earned their reputation in a specific era, in the 90s and the early 2000s, when material costs were lower, manufacturing tolerances were tighter, and these motors were built to last 30 years in commercial fishing fleets. The motors being sold and resold today under that same reputation are not all from that era. Some of them are. Some of them are 10-year-old rental motors with 200 hours of salt exposure and a fresh coat of paint. The brand name is the same. The condition is not. That distinction matters more than the country of origin, and by the end of this video, you will know exactly what to look for before you hand over your money. Mercury is American branded, but the F-15 4-stroke is built in Suzhou, China, under Brunswick's manufacturing umbrella. I am including it here because it consistently appears in the under $3,000 used market alongside genuine Japanese motors, and buyers frequently assume it is Japanese because of the Mercury name. It is not. At the bench, the F-15 is a competent but unremarkable motor. The powerhead is clean. The cylinder walls on the unit I pulled apart showed acceptable wear for its hour count. The cowling latch mechanism is a known failure point, and the plastic housing cracks after several seasons of ultraviolet exposure. The replacement part is $140 from Mercury, which is an absurd price for a piece of injection molded plastic. The tiller handle pivot also develops slop over time because the bushing material is soft. It is not catastrophic, just annoying in a way that accumulates. The real issue with the F-15 in the used market is parts pricing. Mercury's dealer network prices its consumables at a consistent premium over Yamaha and Tohatsu equivalents. Impeller kits, thermostats, and fuel filters all run about 15 to 20% higher. Over 5 years of ownership, that adds up. If you are buying used and budget conscious, the Mercury name costs you money on the back end, even when the motor itself is fine. This is a decent motor in poor value clothing. The DF Nine-Point-Nine is one of the most underrated small 4-stroke outboards on the market. That is exactly why it keeps appearing in the $2,000 to $2,800 used range, and nobody talks about it. Suzuki's share of the American outboard market is small enough that it flies under the radar at most dealerships, and that obscurity works against you the moment something needs fixing. On the bench, this motor impressed me. The lower unit casting is thick and well finished. The water pump housing is accessible with 2 bolts, a straight pull. That is the kind of thoughtful design detail that tells you an engineer actually used this motor before signing off on it. Corrosion protection on the electrical connectors is better than average, with dielectric grease applied at the factory rather than left for the owner to figure out. The problem is the service network. There are roughly 1,400 Suzuki Marine dealers in the United States. There are over 2,500 Yamaha dealers. In a major metro, that gap is invisible. On a lake in rural Tennessee or coastal Louisiana, it means your motor can sit for 3 weeks waiting for a dealer to order a part they do not stock. The DF Nine-Point-Nine deserves better than 3rd place, but the dealer network puts it there. If you live within 45 minutes of a Suzuki Marine dealer, move this motor up a spot. Tohatsu does not get the respect it deserves in America. And the reason is almost entirely marketing. The brand has less than 5% US market awareness, despite building outboards since 1956 and supplying engines to Nissan Marine and early Mercury models under OEM agreements. If you have ever run a 1980s Mercury two-stroke, there is a real chance it was built by Tohatsu. The MFS20 I pulled apart was a current production unit. The powerhead is compact, and this is the lightest motor in its horsepower class at about 57 kilograms, and the engineering shows in the detail work. The camshaft bearing surfaces were cleanly machined. The intake manifold showed no casting flash. The fuel delivery system runs on a fully serviceable carburetor rather than a low-pressure fuel injection system, which means a competent owner with a $30 rebuild kit can address fuel issues without a dealer. There are two legitimate criticisms. First, cold weather starting on carbureted Tohatsu models requires a precise choke sequence that is not well documented in the English owner's manual. Miss it and you will flood the motor. That is not a fatal problem, just annoying if you do not know the trick. Second, Tohatsu parts availability on Amazon and third-party sites is thinner than Yamaha's, which means more waiting if you order online rather than through a dealer. The MFS20 retails for around $3,400. Used units in good condition run $1,800 to $2,600 depending on hours and condition. At that price, this motor is one of the most overlooked values in the segment. The Tohatsu reputation problem is an American marketing problem, not an engineering problem. This is the motor everyone recommends, and after pulling one apart, it's not hard to understand why. But it's also worth being precise about what you're actually buying, because the F25 reputation gets projected onto a lot of units that do not deserve it. The F25 I benchmarked was a 2014 production unit with 312 logged hours from a freshwater application. The cylinder walls were within factory tolerance. The impeller showed fatigue but had not failed. The electrical harness and every connector was clean with no oxidation. On a 10-year-old motor with over 300 hours, that is not luck. That is a wiring system designed to survive. Specific things that separate this motor from everything else I have opened include the lower unit using tapered roller bearings on the prop shaft where competitors use bushings. Tapered roller bearings handle both radial and axial loads, and that matters when you are backing down hard or hitting weed beds. The thermostat housing is cast aluminum rather than thermoplastic, so it does not warp with heat cycling over time. The paint system is a 3-stage bake process that visibly holds up in salt water compared to the single coat finishes on the Chinese motors I have examined previously. The known issues are real. The F25 in its pre-2018 configuration has a thermostat that runs warm by design. Yamaha set it to 140 degrees Fahrenheit to improve cold climate performance. And if that thermostat sticks closed, you will overheat before the temperature gauge has time to warn you. It is a documented issue. The fix is a $22 thermostat and 15 minutes of work. But you need to know it exists, because it will not come up at the point of sale. The F25 also commands a resale premium that occasionally outpaces its actual condition. A 2010 motor with 500 hours and deferred maintenance is not worth $2,800 simply because it says Yamaha on the cowling. Check the service history. If the previous owner cannot tell you when the impeller was last changed, assume it has not been changed and price that into your offer. The Japanese advantage is real, but it is concentrated in specific components. The power heads on every motor I opened, including the Mercury, were adequate to good. When Japanese outboards fail, they almost always trace back to ignored maintenance rather than factory deficiencies. Water pump impellers run past their service interval. Lower unit gear oil is never changed. Thermostats are left in for 15 years. Chinese outboards, as covered earlier, tend to fail because of the surrounding materials: cheap seals, degrading fuel lines, and single coat paint. Those cheap parts degrade from the start, and they are often hidden inside the motor. Neglect, on the other hand, is something you can investigate before purchase. The practical guidance from every hour spent on this bench is simple. Buy any Japanese motor with documented service history over a Japanese motor with a low price and an unknown past. The brand hierarchy matters less than the maintenance record. A Tohatsu with receipts beats a Yamaha with a mystery. Used Japanese motors in the $1,500 to $3,000 range are still the best value in outboard power, but only if you verify what you are actually getting. The name on the cowling is the beginning of the evaluation, it is not the end.